Welcome to part 1 of a multi-part guide to CCP Games' highly acclaimed persistent world massively multiplayer online role-playing game, EVE Online. Unlike many other MMOs, EVE's world and lore are uniquely shaped and driven by its player base, who are given incredible freedoms to explore, shape and create their own story in the EVE universe. In these series of guides, I'm going to show you the fundamentals of starting your career in New Eden and provide you with the tools to head in whichever direction you choose to take your EVE journey. Now, EVE really is unlike any other MMO out there. Let's imagine you and your mates are running a raid in your cookie cutter MMO of choice. You get to the final boss and are about to take it down when suddenly 20 invisible enemies melt into view all around you. The next thing you know, you and your buddies are attacked from all angles. In seconds, you're all blown to smithereens, your precious loot is stolen, and you awaken blinking at the glaring light of the medical station interior where your consciousness has been transported after it was ripped from your body and flung into your nearest fresh medical clone. This is EVE, or at least one of the more talked about and publicised aspects of it. But the point that I am trying to emphasise by this analogy is the unshackling freedoms this game can provide you as opposed to many other titles in this genre. In the EVE universe, where you will go and what you will do is entirely up to you. Perhaps you will choose to take the path of the explorer and traverse the thousands of unique solar systems and remote regions of space in search of lost riches and hidden treasures in the beautifully crafted world of New Eden. Maybe you want to become a business tycoon and make and sell everything from spacecraft and parts to star bases and citadels, or make your fortune trading the EVE markets. Or are you called to more direct action, defending yourself and your mates from New Eden's many pirate gangs and soldiers of fortune? Or maybe you'll join one such group and make your living from more unscrupulous means. Wherever it is you decide your path leads in New Eden, this series of guides will provide you with the essential tools and knowledge you will need to get there. And who knows, perhaps you'll take your own path and pioneer a career as yet unthought of in a world where your only true limits are your own imagination and creativity. Now, getting started in New Eden can be a daunting task for many new players. EVE Online is a game with a notoriously steep learning curve that many new players do not manage to overcome. So after you've logged in for the very first time and created your character, you may find you're a little lost as to where to go next. But don't worry, if you are completely new to EVE, I'd certainly encourage you to do the in-game tutorials, which will give you a basic understanding of the game's controls and various career options. The tutorials are constantly changing and being updated, so if you're confused or run into trouble with some of the basic things, you can ask in the rookie chat that you'll be thrown into how to find the current version of the tutorials or career agents, as well as just seeking general advice. You will find that the player community is extremely helpful and will always take the time to help out a new bro, so do not be shy about asking questions. But certainly, once you've mastered a few of the basics and have a rough idea of what interests you most in-game, you should start your search for a corporation. Joining a good corporation is going to be the best way to make sure you are getting the help and advice you're going to need as a new player to EVE. In your new corp, you're also going to make connections with fellow capsuleers who have similar interests or are just cool people you can have fun with flying internet spaceships. Many of the friends that I made in my first corp I still play regularly with today, and certainly having a fun core group of players who you enjoy flying with is something that will keep you coming back and enjoying your time playing this game. So to find corps, you can apply a filtered search through the corporation search function in-game, although it can be hard to search through the thousands of adverts to find the corp that's right for you. So I'd encourage you to ask in chat channels in-game and reach out to EVE communities such as on the official forums or over at r/EVE on Reddit for help in finding a good EVE corporation that's going to fit what it is you want to get out of the game. Posts from new players seeking advice always get a lot of attention, and on the sidebar on the r/eve subreddit, you can find a list of corporation and alliance subreddits where you can go to ask questions to corporations directly. Also on the sidebar, you can find links to other EVE-related subreddits, such as r/EVE-jobs, which is specifically directed toward helping players find corporations. What kind of corp you end up joining is up to you, but joining a large corporation first off in EVE is more often than not the smart move, as in a large corp, you're always going to have people online in your time zone who you can make connections with and get good advice from. You're also more likely to find experienced players in larger corps who have played the game for a long time and know what they're on about. Some of the good New Bro Corps include groups like EVE University, Signal Cartel, and Brave Newbies, although who's hot and who's not in EVE is in a constant state of flux, so definitely make your inquiries before deciding to join a corporation. So how do I make money in game is one of the most commonly asked questions by new and older players alike. Having a consistent and reliable income in game is going to drive pretty much everything that you do in EVE. No matter what it is, everything is going to come at a cost, and for that you are going to need Interstellar credits, or ISK. Thankfully, there are many ways in which you can make ISK in game, and if you put your mind to it, you can become an Interstellar fat cat in no time. But let me preface what I'm about to go into by saying that you should first and foremost do what is fun for you in game, regardless of what anyone else may say about it. If you're enjoying what you're doing, then you are winning at EVE, and anyone else who tells you otherwise can go and play on the highway. Now, a lot of new players do seem to end up mining in high security space at some stage during their early days in EVE. Somewhere out there, the belief has developed that mining in HighSec is a safe and reliable source of income for new players. While some aspects of this statement are true, ultimately, mining in HighSec, unless you're doing it because you enjoy it, is going to end up making you less money than many other career options. And if you're simply doing it because it's safe and easy, you will end up stunting your own growth as a player. When I first joined EVE, I was actually brought into the game by a friend who ran a HighSec mining operation. So naturally, I teamed up with him, bought myself a venture, and declared war on asteroid belts stretching from Jita to Amar. However, since my friend was not online all that often, I began searching for possible corporations to join. Eventually, I ended up joining Signal Cartel and began hearing about exploration and players cracking open single containers in exploration sites worth between 50 to 100 million ISK. For me, that was well over a week's worth of mining. So, of course, I dived headlong into exploration and never looked back. Pretty soon, I was making upwards of 100 million every time I'd log in, and was quickly building myself a sizable war chest to fuel my EVE adventures. I started out making day trips through Thera into nullsec regions such as Stain, where at the time, and still at the time of making this video, the best exploration sites in the game can be found. All I needed to do this was a Tech 1 frigate fitted out with a relic analyzer and costing less than 5 million ISK to put together, and I was consistently coming home with hauls of over 300 million plus. I was, of course, also regularly getting blown out of the sky by the various nullsec groups who would hunt in the areas I explored. In fact, at one point during my first month of EVE, I was actually averaging 1.4 ships destroyed every single day. Whilst this may seem like a lot, and it is a lot, my advice to any new player is always going to be don't be afraid of losing ships. Getting blown up is going to be a fact of life for any new capsuleer. But what's important is that you learn from each experience and discover why you got caught. A good practice is going to be convoing players who end up killing you and ask them what you did wrong or how they were able to catch you. You'll find that even the most hardened pirate in EVE will more often than not be willing to stop and have a chat with you and share advice. After all, everyone was new to the game at some point. You may find that players you chat will even send you ISK to replace your ships. On more than one occasion, I've had players send me money after blowing me up, and often in amounts 2 to 3 times what my ship was actually worth. Of course, not everyone is going to replace your ships for you, but that's really not going to be a problem, because making it back from a nullsec dive, even just once, will literally pay for 50 to 100 Tech 1 frigates, depending on how lucky you got. But as you learn and gain experience, you'll pretty soon be making it back more often than not, and your earnings and skills will continue to pile up. Now, obviously, there are other ways to make money in game, but as a new player, this was what worked for me. And even still today, it seems like every week I hear about a new player who's managed to plex their account from exploration in their first month. In fact, many players manage to do this in as little as 2 to 3 weeks, so the possibilities for making ISK exploring are obviously very, very good. Of course, let me just state again that you should do what's fun for you in game, and if that's not exploring, then you shouldn't do it. There are many other paths that you could take, but creating your own story in the universe is one of the things that makes this game special. However, to me, exploration just felt right in that it fitted with what I found exciting about EVE. Of course, you can run missions, or go into a mining career like I already talked about, or perhaps start with factional warfare. However, what I loved about exploring was obviously making bucket loads of ISK, but more so, I felt that I was engaged with the player-driven world of New Eden. There are hundreds of different MMOs where I can run about in a fantasy world that's created for the players, but where you sort of feel like a bit of a tourist. You don't particularly feel to be a part of the world, but rather a guest in some fantastic place that quite often can feel contrived or somehow artificial. Whereas in the EVE universe, you are literally a part of it, and actions that you make directly affect the game world. Everything that you buy on the markets, save for a few minor things like some skill books, were created by players, who in turn created those items from materials and resources gathered by other players. Everything from spaceships to parts and modules, even down to consumable items or skill injectors, have been created by a real player in the EVE universe. So being a part of this world is what excites me about EVE, and of course exploring, where the threats that I have to deal with are other players who are intelligent and not some NPC, but are capable of dynamic and surprising decisions and actions. That's what gets me excited about this game and makes me want to log in. The information found in this guide, as well as things that I'm going to be covering in future guides, can be found in-game at the mailing list New Bro Help. To join a mailing list, open up your EVE Mail, click on the Add Mailing List button in the bottom left corner of the window, then just type the name of the mailing list, which in this case is New Bro Help, and hit join. You'll then be added to the list and receive a welcome mail if the mailing list has one saved. In the coming parts of this guide, I'm going to be covering more specific areas of the game, such as UI and overview setup, basic ship fitting, navigation, and intermediate internet spaceship pilotry, as well as many other useful hints and information. If you have specific questions or things that you'd like to see covered in future videos, you can let me know by commenting here or by contacting Captain Ace Rico the next time you're in New Eden. I do hope you'll join me for future videos in this series, but until then, fly dangerous.